We have 2 minutes. I think it sounds like maybe it might be. Yep, it is. Have 1 minute. I show 9:30.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to everybody. Welcome to the regular board meeting of the Western Municipal Water District. Tammy, would you please call the roll?
Yeah, I'd like to give a little update on what we're doing with the meetings now as we open the meeting up, just so the public's aware and the board's clear
Okay.
on how we're handling meetings, because the
It is
COVID
different.
emergency is over today. And so our board decided that we were going to revert back to the old Brown Act requirements, which means that the board members will be here in person for meetings. If they want to remotely participate in a meeting, that has to be posted on the agenda with an address of where the public can join them for that meeting. And so just want to be clear that the board will be here. But also, it's important to remind the public that Zoom option is still available for the public to participate in and to comment. You can do it in person, you can do it on Zoom. We'll obviously continue live streaming and the on-demand viewing of our board meetings, so nothing changes with any of that. Tammy will not need to read the COVID protocols anymore. I know how much you all enjoy her doing that
that's the
at
very
every
best
single
part.
board meeting. But unless there's a huge groundswell of requests for her to do that, we're not going to do that anymore. So just want to make sure the public is aware of how our board decided to handle the release of the emergency COVID protocols by the state. With that, unless there's questions, we can go to the roll call.
Are there questions or comments from board members? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. And as a reminder, I'll only be calling roll for the board. Director Torres? Here. Director Dinstead?
Here. Present. Good morning.
Good morning. Director Roten?
Here.
Director Rizvi?
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. President Gardner?
Good morning, I am present.
Good morning. President Gardner, you do have a quorum today.
Thank you very much. Brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance, and today we have Ginger Han, a senior engineer from, surprisingly, the engineering department, who will lead us in the pledge. Would you introduce yourself just a bit more and tell us how long you've been here? And
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, President Gardner, esteemed directors and executive staff. My name is Ginger Han, and I am the senior engineer with our wonderful development services team here at Western, and I've been with the district for almost 5 months. So I'm privileged to be here today to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, ready? Let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ginger.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any public comments that were submitted online by the deadline yesterday?
We do not.
Do we have anyone in the room who would like to speak?
Not at this time.
And do we have anybody online who would like to speak?
I see no requests.
Okay, we will then close public comments and go to the consent calendar. These are items that are considered routine, and unless a board member or member of the public asks to remove one for discussion, they will be voted on as a package. Anybody wish to pull an item?
Move consent?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the consent calendar as presented. Tammy, would you please call the roll?
Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dinstead?
Aye?
Director Risby?
Yes.
Director Roten?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, do we have anything to add to the agenda?
Nothing to add today?
Okay, thank you. Brings us then to our action agenda. The first is a receive and file of our annual comprehensive financial report.
I'm sure that you all spent the evening reading our fabulous annual comprehensive financial report. I'd invite Kevin to do the opening comments and give us a little background. So,
Great,
Kevin?
be glad to.
All
You do
yours.
get a free bookmark, by the way, if you read through the entire
Oh.
financial report, so it's a little extra. But good morning, directors. This item is a staff recommendation to receive and file Western Municipal Water District's annual comprehensive financial report, often called the ACFR, for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. And this report contains the audited financial statements for Western Water. I'm going to start off with an overview of the financial performance for the year, and then turn it over to Daphne Munoz, a principal auditor with Clifton, Larson, and Allen. Daphne has some required communication to make to the board. You each have a copy of the ACFR here on the dais. It's prepared and issued annually by the Finance Department and is just shy of 100 pages. This report reflects Western Water's commitment to financial stewardship, which is one of our core strategic priorities, and presents our continued strong financial position. And to aid in transparency, we have posted the ACFR on our website. So there are 4 sections in this report. There's an introductory section, which is an excellent overview of Western Water and the services we provide, as well as major initiatives. There's a financial section, a required supplementary information section, and a statistical section. Included in the financial section is a narrative called Management's Discussion and Analysis. The Management's Discussion and Analysis is an 8-page narrative that I think is the best way for most people to understand how this agency is doing financially. All right, now for some highlights. Our revenues exceeded our expenditures. That's a great thing, okay? And is the norm for Western. So our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $10 million. Positive news. Now, to put this $10 million in perspective or in context, it is 6% of our total operating and non-operating revenues plus capital contributions, which combined totaled $166 million for the year. However, I think it's important to note that we had to recognize $19 million in what are called unrealized investment losses during the fiscal year. Probably no surprise for anyone who has any investments or a retirement plan of their own. This recognition of the unrealized investment losses is in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So an unrealized loss occurs when the market value of an investment drops below what you paid for it. However, it doesn't become a realized loss as long as the investment is held to maturity, which is what Western normally does since our investment portfolio consists primarily of bonds that all have a stated maturity date. So now, without the recognition of those unrealized investment losses, our net position would have increased from $10 million to $29 million. This year's ACFR incorporates a new method for reporting Western's leases as required by the Government Accounting Standard Board's new pronouncement. That's pronouncement number 87. Western leases vehicles and land and is the lessor for cell tower sites and office space here in our headquarters. Implementing this new pronouncement was particularly complicated, but I'm very pleased to say that our staff did an outstanding job accomplishing it. A lot of hours went into that complex pronouncement and fulfilling it. As mentioned last year, the ACFR now includes financial information for our retirement medical benefits plan, This is an irrevocable trust set up to pay for retiree medical benefits in accordance with the plan documents, and it's funded each year by Western Water. And similar to Western's investment returns, the Medical Benefits Trust also experienced unrealized losses as well. However, and I hope this isn't too complicated, but in this time, when we had our actuarial evaluation done this last year, we learned that our actual experience, not talking about investments here, but our actual what's called experience was significantly better than our expected experience when it was last done compared to when it was done 2 years ago. The phrase actual experience means that what we actually experienced when it came to the number of factors, such as age when employees actually retire, how long they live, what actual medical premiums are that we're paying for these retirees, et cetera. So what was actually experienced had a financially beneficial impact compared to what was expected to be experienced. What that means is that our retiree medical benefit liability, the liability went down far more than our investments went down. Okay, and I'll explain why that's good news in just a moment. Some of you may recall that we were overfunded in this trust, in this benefit, by almost $2.5 million at the end of the prior fiscal year 2021. Now, being overfunded is a good thing. Now, at the end of fiscal year 2022, we were overfunded by about $6.6 million, a greater number, meaning our assets of $20 million were greater than our liabilities by $6.6 million, or 49%. Now, that may reverse itself a bit because the investment market, and we may not have that same difference between actual experience and expected experience when we do our next evaluation in another year and a half or so. But for now, what that means is that we do not have to fund the trust for this current fiscal year or next fiscal year. That's about $700,000 a year. That's really good news. As you've likely heard that up and down the state, this is not the case with many governments who have a retiree medical benefit trust substantially underfunded. Here locally, our County of Riverside has a $200 million unfunded liability for this benefit. So again, very positive news for Western Water. So this highly complex report would not be possible without the dedication, capability, and intelligence of our accounting staff. I'll be very frank with you, I'm particularly proud of them this year because they not only had to implement a very complex lease reporting pronouncement, but they also had to do take on a lot of extra responsibilities. You may recall that our accounting manager left for another agency middle of last year, and then one of our senior accountants retired, which people, of course, are allowed to do. But when you have a very, very small, well, except for the people that, well, period, we would rather people never do that. But when you have a couple, just even a couple people leave a very small group of folks, that places a tremendous burden on the existing staff. And I know for a fact many had to forego time off. They instead worked many extra hours of overtime. And then it's the added stress that placed on them. But they came through like champions. This report is an example of that. And I'd just like to mention who they are, too. We have two that aren't here, but we have several that are. I'm just going to start over there. Veronica Zhang. Veronica, go ahead and raise your hand. She's our Director of Finance. Next to her is Peter George, our recently acquired controller. We're so grateful for him. And then just going kind of diagonal back, there's Teresa Daly. Teresa is our temporary accountant. Boy, are we glad that we got her in place. She's also going to help us during our ERP implementation. And then not feeling well today and would have loved to have been here is our senior accountant, Christian Roman George. Took on a lot of weight. She's been here for a long time, but she took on a lot of the heavy lifting. And then also Vivian Pedroza, our accountant, too. So we'll recognize them maybe a little bit more shortly here. But again, this was a big effort, and they just performed the Western way, really. So proud of them.
I like the best one.
So before I turn it over to our external auditor, does the board have any questions for staff?
Kevin, I think it would be useful for any members of the public who are listening for a really brief description of, since we are not a profit-making entity, how come we made $10 million and didn't use it to reduce rates? Where did it go? Why is it important that we maintain different reserves?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be glad to. Now, of course, with any organization, where to come at zero or negative is a concern. That means you're under collecting for the provision of services. Also included in that 10 million, though, are revenues that are not rate-related, too. Okay, so something to keep in mind. We have grant revenue that's incorporated into that number, and that money is set aside generally for capital projects and things like that. And so not all of that 10 million is rate revenue. We do, I think we did this already, but we did do a budget versus actual where we looked at the water funds and the wastewater funds and explained how that surplus in those types of funds were being earmarked, for particular purposes. Now, whenever a fund like Riverside Potable, which is out here, has a surplus in there, maybe, the revenues from rates was exceeded the cost of operations, it just, in essence, goes into a savings account or really a reserve for them, for that service area. Maybe it's to pay for a system improvement capital project. Or we just had an item at the engineering committee where we have an unexpected expenditure, about, $560,000 to do testing, leak detection on a very old but important pipeline in the March area. And so it goes generally for those one-time things. Whenever you use surplus or reserves to lower rates, you could do that, but then as soon as that money is no longer available, you got to raise rates right back up, in addition to whatever you would have normally have increased those rates for, just for the cost of operation. So that's, does that help explain
Yeah,
that?
I think it does. And just one thing you didn't mention that is important is the rating agencies look at the overall financial health, the long-term financial health of organizations. And we have the highest rating, which when we do need to go out on the market to raise funds for a big project, makes the interest rates that we pay significantly lower. So there's a trade-off between returning money or not collecting money and having, that's a benefit to ratepayers if they don't pay as much. But they pay more in the long run if your reserves are lower and your rating is lower. So it's a kind of constant dance that agencies like Western do and have to do to figure where is the right place, how much reserve is the right reserve. And I think we do a good job of that.
I agree.
President Gardner, I would also add that we went through a 4-year rate adjustment process, and the rates that this board approved were significantly lower than inflation rates and other escalators that we compare to. So we approved increases of 2.3%, followed by 3% and 3%, and I think 4%.
Right, depending on whether it's water or wastewater, but in that range.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's substantially under what other agencies are doing and what inflation is doing to our economy. Well, why can we do that? That's where this comes back. So this is the financial planning, and we reward the customers with savings like this in that rate-setting process. So it's a little invisible.
It's very complicated.
Invisible to the customers, but rather than, as Kevin said, a rebate, and then we would be forced to overreact and kind of double our rate increases to make up for where we should have been, we would prefer to do it on the planning side ahead, plan for those positive financial investments, and that way we can, keep our rate adjustments as low as possible, and I would say lower than what any of the competition is doing.
No, I agree. Thank you. Director Denstedt.
Thank you. I did notice that, again, there is a missing piece in the staff report, which always gives me a little bit of heartburn that you guys leave these things out. Mr. Mascaro, can you please tell me how many years we have been awarded the Certificate of Excellence in Reporting for Financial Reports, please? Because this has not been mentioned in the staff report, although it is mentioned in the CAFR. I don't like the other name.
Understood. Actually, as a little teaser, I'll be sharing with you how Western has received that Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 17th year in just maybe a few minutes from now. But yes, We just achieved the 17th one. This one we, of course, will submit for hopefully our 18th consecutive year.
And I just want to point out, staff has a really difficult time ringing their own bell sometimes, and want to make sure that these things get in the staff report so that if the public is reading them, they understand that those things are due to the fantastic staff we have in place that are putting these reports together. So the team deserves that recognition for all of the hard work that they do. So kudos to staff for receiving this award, yet again.
Thank you.
And keep the trend going. And with that, Mr. President, if it's appropriate, I'd
No,
make a
we have,
motion
we're not,
to.
We haven't
I don't
had the
believe he's
presentation.
finished yet.
Oh, okay, no?
Now comes the fun part.
Right, that was just for questions of staff. We now want to give our external auditor, Daphne Munoz, with Clifton Larson and Allen, an opportunity to share some required information that she has for the board of directors. Welcome, Daphne.
Good morning, President Gardner and members of the board. Again, my name is Daphne Munoz, and I'm a principal at Clifton Larson Allen, and I'm here today to present to you the results of our audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020. My presentation will cover 3 sections. I'll be going over the scope of our services, and I'll go over our opinion, which is really our deliverable. On that almost 100-page notebook our report is only 3-page long. The rest, again, is really from the staff. And also, as Mr. Mascaro mentioned, I will be discussing required communications to those charged with governance. So for our scope of our services, we performed an audit of the financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2020, in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as government auditing standards. We've also issued separate opinions for the CFDs and the retirement plan. The district spent more than $750,000 in federal expenditures. Therefore, the district is required to have what we call a single audit. It's a compliance audit related to the financial statement audit with regards to federal expenditures and compliance with the grantor's requirements. So on page 1 of the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report is our opinion. This year, the format of the opinion is a little different than what's in the past because of a new standards, Statement 134. The first paragraph this year, actually, it goes right to our opinion. So for this year, we have issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of opinion that any agency can get. And what that means is that the financial statements are presented in all material respects in accordance with GAAP. As mentioned before, we have highlighted to the users that the district have to implement GASB 87 regarding leases. And that implementation is effective July 1st, 2021. Management is responsible for the financial statements, for its fair presentation, as well as adopting internal controls over financial reporting. Our responsibility as auditors is to express opinions on those financial statements. Something new this year, and again, I just want to highlight, is our report, although the district is not on a going concern position, but there is a verbiage there about going concern that the district is not on going concern, but it is a requirement under 134 for us to include in the report. As part of our audit, we obtain reasonable assurance to make sure that the financial statements are free of material misstatements. And I'm highlighting the term reasonable because we are not providing absolute assurance. Absolute means we will have to test all transactions that happened during the year, and we just not did that. So that's why we are only providing reasonable assurance as opposed to absolute. Again, we performed our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. Our opinion also talks about our responsibility with regards to the other parts of the report, such as the required supplementary information, and other information included in the annual report. As part of our audit, we reviewed the district's internal control over financial reporting to serve as a basis for providing our opinion to determine whether our audit procedures are appropriate. However, I would like to point out that we are not providing an opinion on the internal controls. And as a result of that review of internal controls, we did not have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to disclose. Our professional standards require us to communicate certain information to those charged with governance. First is that the planned scope of our audit and timing was communicated to the management during our planning meeting and also in our engagement letter. Management is responsible for selection and use of accounting policies, and those accounting policies are disclosed in Note 1 to the financial statements. Again, the district had a change in policies as a result of the implementation of 87 that is effective July 1st, 2021. The financial statements include significant estimates for which actual results could vary with those estimates, and some of the two sensitive estimates included in the financial statements are, one is the required contributions, net pension liability, and related deferred outflows and inflows for the net pension liability, and the assumptions used for the valuation of the net pension liability is based on actuarial valuations provided by CalPERS actuarials. Second is the OPEB expense, the net OPEB liability, and deferred inflows and outflows. The assumptions used for that estimate is based on an actuarial valuation provided by an actuary that is hired by the district. We did not have any difficulties during our audit. We did not have any disagreements with management. Management has provided us a representation letter dated January 20th, 2023. Basically, what that letter provides is that the management has provided us all information pertinent to our audit. And lastly, to our knowledge, the district did not consult with other accountants with regard to any accounting or auditing issues. And I would just conclude, again, I would like to thank the management and the staff for their professionalism and prompt responses to our inquiries, which really made our audit, this engagement really easy for us to do. And that concludes my presentation. I will be glad to answer any questions.
Are there questions from board members?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good, I'm happy.
Yeah, no, this is obviously the kind of report that every agency wants to get because hopefully they all want to do a good job. And to the credit of our management and staff, the auditor has found that we did do a good job, which is always our intent. But I just want to add my thanks and congratulations to our financial staff, from Kevin down. You really have done a good job. It is routine for us to get favorable audits and not find problems. The reason that we hire auditors is to look for a problem, if there is one, so we can correct it. But because of you, there weren't any. So thank you very much. At this point, I think we would look for a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Tammy, have we any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, would you then please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Director Torres?
Yes.
Director Dinstedt?
Aye.
Director Roten?
Yes.
Director Risby?
Yes.
President Gardner?
Aye.
The motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much. That was our only action item for today. Brings us to reports. General Counsel, Mr. Ballinger.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Could I interrupt, please? I
Oh,
don't want
please.
staff to leave.
Oh.
Hang on, don't
Staff
leave
doesn't
yet.
get to leave.
Before the finance staff leaves, we would like to get a picture with the board to commemorate winning the 17th version of the award. So
I can explain what that is. I'd love to. So the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting is given by the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, and it's for our act for ending June 30th, 2021, and that being the 17th year that we received that prestigious award. So it's not only this Okay, this is pretty heavy, all marble. Anyway, not to compete with Sarah's plastic awards for her department, but anyway, we have this award that we'd like to have honored along with the board for a picture, but there's more. So we also have the Excellence in Operating Budgeting Award, which is presented by the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers, CSMFO. It is the premier statewide association that promotes excellence in financial management through innovation, continuing education, award programs, and the professional development of its members. So in order to receive this budget award, Western Water published a budget document that meets program criteria as a policy document, operations guide, financial plan, and communications device. Additionally, this awards program is designed to recognize agency whose budget documents meet the statewide standards and requirements considered to be of the highest quality. Western Water has received this award 8 times. And special recognition to Daisy Banuelos, right there, our senior financial analyst. And then 3 down the line, there's Brittany Spry. She's our administrative assistant who assisted Daisy in the compilation of the budget. So with that, how about a photo opportunity? All right.
I think that's a great idea. My only reservation, and not that I don't want to take a picture today, and I think we should, but I would like to do another one when some of the key staff who are unable to be with us today can be with us.
Absolutely.
I would like to have them in the photo as well.
Good, because they have certainly earned.
Yeah, I
recognition.
agree. So we'll get to do this twice.
All right.
The general manager's report. Excellent.
General Counsel have anything to report first?
He said
do
he
not.
did not.
Sorry, I missed that part while I was interrupting you to get a photo. I apologize.
It is unusual for an attorney not to have anything to say.
As long as they invite a bunch of friends, that's usually what they do. They
Yes.
like to travel in packs. All right, I've got a list that I want to go through real quickly. So let's start with water supply. Obviously, water supply is looking much better. So the State Water Project allocation moved from 30% to 35%. Honestly, I don't know why they did that. It's good news, but the real factor is snowpack. And in the 30% that they increased from 5% to 30%, they did not account for snowpack. That was based on water levels in reservoirs. So obviously, we're all on the edge of our seat. They measure snowpack today. And so we will see if they make further adjustments. But you're all hearing about the snowpack we have locally. We still have people stranded in the mountains. You know, they got up to 8 feet of snow in the local mountains. So we expect that 35% will climb even higher, which is great news. And I think you'll remember that I shared with you that Metropolitan is still working on an allocation plan for shortage. Maybe we're not as enthusiastic as we used to be on that because it is so wet out, but we're still working on that. And within that, Metropolitan has said that, you know, they really need the State Water Project allocation to climb above 50% to kind of head off any sort of allocation. So I think we're feeling better about that, but we'll just see how it plays out. But it's kind of the burning question in water. Hey, it's a great year. How great is it? It's a really good water year. But we had a huge hole to dig out of. Next item. You may recall there was a fire on Opportunity Way in September. It looked really bad. It was a pallet fire out in the parking lot of that building. And huge response by the fire department, a huge response by our team. Paul and his team were on the site. And Larry Chanas particularly worked very closely with the fire department and made sure they had enough water to fight that fire, which is an issue because with that many fire engines and that many fire hydrants in play, they're sucking all the life out of our water system to fight that fire. But Larry, Stu Dillingham, Stephanie Ober, Brittany Spry, all put their collective knowledge together and submitted a cost to the insurance company. And I'm happy to say that Western was reimbursed $19,511 for all of our efforts of being out there to cover our costs. So that is great news. Good job, gang. Thank you very much. Our customers, thank you very much. Switching gears, solve the water crisis. We report on this all the time. We're up over 100 supporters of Solve the Water Crisis now. That is not including the 27 member agencies that are the revenue generators and the real drivers of Solve the Water Crisis. So that is good news. Do we have lapel pins? Yes. Do we have them? You have them. So we've been working on pens. You now have pens for Solve the Water Crisis to wear everywhere. Please use them, and we do have some, so we can hand them out to our supporters. Obviously, all of the board members and the board member agencies should get those pens also. But you'll be on the special Solve the Water Crisis team when you wear your pen. All right, next step from Solve the Water Crisis, and you've all heard about this. Michael talked about it a lot yesterday at our ComGov meeting. SB 366 is...
Wait a second. Mr. Miller, I notice you're not wearing your Solve the Water Crisis
I
pin.
gave those to the board members.
Okay.
Board members first. Throw it over.
Can I ask a quick question, Craig, before you go on? Will the paid members, will they have pins to be able to share?
Sarah's taking care of that. We'll have that.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
I don't know how big our box is, but we have a box. So now, you know, Solve the Water Crisis, the big question that we've had for the last years, we talk about solve the water crisis, is what is the path forward? What's the fix? What do we do? Well, the legislation is what we do. So I'd like to bring back to this board, to the next board meeting, a resolution of support for that legislation, because that then enables me to go around and tell people that Western is supporting this legislation, which I think is a very important marketing step and support step for the legislation. But CMUA is running the legislation. They are the sponsor. The author is Senator Caballero. She is an outstanding author. She's authored other water legislation. She's very successful in authoring legislation. So she was our first choice, CMUA's first choice, and she agreed to do it. So that is really important. We are going to likely have a press conference, March 23rd, I think? Is that right, Sarah?
22nd, I believe, March 22nd.
22nd, with the senator, so you'll hear more about that. Goal of the bill is to set a long-term water target in statute. So this is forcing the state to have a long-term water supply plan. And that is really important because that's what we don't see out of the state, is a long-term plan. So you'll see an individual administration come in with their plan, and Governor Newsom released his water supply plan with all the different elements that he thinks is important for the state. We love it. We think that's great. We want to incorporate that into statute so that the next administration can't backtrack. And so within that long-range target will also be a requirement that DWR develop a plan of projects to meet that target and a financing plan of how to do that. The financing of that will be collaborative funding between local agencies and state, like we always do. There's going to be local projects in there and big state projects in there. So nothing different. So you may hear, as you go out and talk about this, that people are concerned about an unfunded mandate or something that they're going to pay for and not get any benefit. That's not the case. This is going to be what we're doing is we're forcing the state to do long-term planning. And it's really important. It's a first step. So we're really excited about it. It's making great progress, and you're obviously going to hear a lot more about it. The bill language is being finalized right now. We had a call with CMUA 2 days ago, and we're kind of putting the polishing touches on some of that stuff. So you're going to see final language. So that's great. As part of that, CMUA is going to be developing a outreach program to support that legislation. We are going to be helping to fund that. We're asking all the Solve the Water Crisis members to help fund that, and we're reaching out to associations and water agencies across the state that aren't part of Solve the Water Crisis to try and get them to help in that funding effort. This is an important statewide element. Also, we were very active at Urban Water Institute conference last week. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The conference started with a focus on solving the water crisis, which is great. The whole first afternoon of the conference was based on statewide participation in solving this issue and what are we going to do. So it was urban, ag, big and little. Metropolitan was on a panel with me, with Las Virgenes, who's kind of been the epicenter for what our lack of planning as a state has done to them. They had a 73% cutback in their water supply, if you can imagine that. They were on the news putting water restrictors in Sylvester Stallone's house and other celebrities' houses in their service area. So they were on the panel. Jason Phillips, who represents Friant, which is a huge agricultural entity in the Central Valley, was on the panel. They're all talking about the exact same thing. They are fully supportive of this legislation. So a lot of momentum. We're really excited to have it there. And I think this is where our board now can ramp up into action, and we need to build the coalition amongst all the electeds too. So as part of Urban Water also, our lead communicator, Sarah, was on a panel the second afternoon and did a fantastic job highlighting Western's communications, what Western is doing to build support for a statewide initiative, and how important it is that we build confidence in our customers and our ratepayers here in our own service area and how that relates to what's happening on the state side. So she was very well received, and it was a great panel. So with that, happy to answer questions.
Questions for Mr. Miller? I see none. Just a real quick reminder, we all know this, but as a public agency, we can educate, we cannot advocate. So even though we're all excited about the legislation and getting people to understand what it is and why it's important, and they may want to decide for themselves to support it, we can't tell them to.
Right. So what we can tell them is go to CMUA
Right.
and learn about it. You can go to Senator Caballero's office and you can learn about it. We can share, if this board takes a support position, we can share that Western
Right.
takes a support position. And we can say, go learn about the legislation. It's really important to Western.
Yeah. Which makes it important to you.
And we think it's really important to the state.
Yep.
But we can't go into, you need to go support this legislation
No
at the
love.
state.
Are any of our local legislators co-authoring or?
Oh. Sarah gave me a note. I skipped that one. Go ahead, Sarah.
A great question, Director. We're working with our local delegation to do just that. We've had interest from Senator Roth, also Senator Sayarto as well, and pretty much every other member of our local delegation expressing interest in supporting the bill and its concept. Of course, we still have final language, so lots to do, but working on securing those co-authorships.
But Director Torres, I think that's a really important step to get our, in fact, the whole Southern California delegation needs to be arm in arm on this. So it's not just us, and it's all of our water associations and, you know, all the groups that you're all members of, whether it's WELL or Chambers or whatever it is. You know, we need to get support from everyone. Our Southern California Water Coalition is really important too, and we're working with them.
Any other questions for Mr. Miller? Okay, thank you, sir. Reports from directors, and we will get to any requests for future items in a minute. We'll start with SAWPA. SAWPA met on the 21st, approved a procurement policy and purchasing update. I gave them a Solve the Water Crisis presentation and asked for their support, and unanimously, the SAWPA board voted to be listed as a supporter of Solve the Water Crisis. So I think next iteration, you'll see their logo on the slides. And SAWPA is in the budget process. At this point, it's discussions with affected organizations, and a budget will be presented to the board at a future meeting for its consideration. And that's it for SAWPA. MWD.
Thank you. Yes, I have several things to talk about. I have gotten quite a few compliments, I want to tell you, from carrying this book around that staff has produced for me for the retreat and all of our priorities and what we've talked about with our member agencies and the white paper that was given to me to share. So there were a lot of directors at Met that really would like to have this.
They have to pay if they
So,
want it. You
yeah,
got it
well,
for free.
you know, there it is. So just want to tell you that that's been kind of a notice thing, because I've been carrying this book around with me at those meetings. And it's interesting also that you say and talk about long-term planning. Yesterday was the first meeting for the Subcommittee on Long-Term Regional Planning Process and Business Modeling that I got to sit and listen to. And this is going to be brought up at the managers' meeting on Friday for a discussion. There's a draft document that everybody is kind of opining on. And so I expect that Mr. Miller will have his fair share of comments at the managers' meeting on Friday to share with that. we pushed the timeline back on it for discussion, so it's not coming up at the March committee. They're going to push it for allowing more time for comments and considerations of the draft, and it will come back to committee, I guess, in April is what we're anticipating. So, good news there. Everything that was discussed at this were covered, all of those items were covered at the retreat. And all of the things that were vetted out by the member agencies and everything that came out of the survey, and those are kind of now all being drafted and put together to make more sense, and aligning various different approaches and topic matters. So that's a document that's living right now in draft form and evolving as we speak. So more to come on that, and certainly look forward to what your participation is at the managers meeting on Friday. So that'll be interesting to hear what you think about that. There was also the executive committee meeting yesterday that was done, and all of the things that were talked about for the upcoming agendas. So a lot is happening and some new subcommittees that have been formed. So I'm interested to see how those are going to play out and what kind of discussions are going to happen at those committees and how that's going to be formed. And then the other thing that will be happening here in the next coming week or so is Met is having a Ledge Day up in Sacramento, which I will be participating in. So I will have hopefully more information to share with you at that point. And that is all of my report, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much. Next one is Chino Basin Water Master. They met, where have I put this? Here we go. And there were two action items. Both are ones where Water Master staff wants to move forward with some items in environmental review, update of the Optimum Basin Management Plan, and some of the member entities don't want to do that at this time. They want to identify projects before you do a programmatic environmental impact report. After exhaustive discussion, both of the staff recommended schedules and scope were approved. And that's it for Water Master. Where's my page? CDA. Our
CDA
new
meeting
rep,
was.
first one.
Yeah, well, I did report on the one in February.
That's right.
And the March meeting was canceled, so we're scheduled to meet again in April.
Okay. RCRA.
So we had a meeting last Thursday. We adopted a resolution recognizing Jane Anderson for her years of dedicated service. She's no longer with the district. So we have Nawa Lupe. She's going to be the new representative. We also approved RCRA Recycle Water Policy Framework. DePuja and Wells had been working for it for a few months. They've had a few executive meetings, and it's a great presentation. It is very detailed, and I would like for it to come to the board so we can have that presentation. And that was approved. We had a couple of purchase orders. One was for West Yost for RCRA Adoptive Management and Monitoring Program for the fiscal year 2023. We had authorized a purchase order of the procurement of polymer. We had a couple of other purchase orders, and then we had some updates from the staff regarding the member agencies. So they are working on the budget for this upcoming year, and they had projected member agency contributions for the 5 years for their capital facilities plan, which was very good to know what is, how each member agency is contributing to that.
Great.
And that's about it. And next time we will be meeting in person at the Temescal DeSalter, which will be in April.
Okay,
That's about it. Thank
great.
you.
WRCOG.
Next week.
Okay, Sarah.
It will meet next month. Canceled.
Aqua Region 9.
Yes, Mr. President, we talked about the up-and-coming tour at the Salton Sea, just kind of finalizing the program on that and getting the itinerary all set and confirmed. And then we also started work on the program for the spring conference for Region 9. So we're finalizing some title descriptions, some things, getting speakers in place, so I'll have more to share on that next time.
Great, thank you. Director's comments. Director Torres?
None today.
Director Roden?
Let's see. Just very quickly, I wanted to thank Craig for being a speaker at the UCR CUC committee breakfast on the 22nd. And Directors Rizvi and Gardner were able to attend that. Our other presenter was Kurt, I think it's
Schwabe.
Doctor, right? Yeah, but he's doctor, isn't he?
Yes.
Dr. Kurt Schwabe. And I thought that he and Craig were great complimentary speakers to each other. Not that they stood up there and complimented each other, actually, but their presentations were kind of intertwined, and the audience was, as in all these water presentations I've seen, the audience is engaged, and that is so encouraging. So just wanted to thank you, Craig. I know your schedule is very full, and appreciated you being there. And Western was a sponsor of that breakfast, which was awesome.
I would also add that Dr. Schwabe is one of our Water Leader alums.
Yes.
So he went through our whole process of learning about it and went on the Colorado River trip.
He went on the CRA trip.
So that's good, good relationship building there. And just a comment I wanted to make for Chino Basin Water Master, they have started for about an hour before the board meetings. They're calling them, I think, orientations or Chino Basin Water Master 101, but they're breaking this down on a monthly basis into 1 hour increments. And I have really gained a lot of information by attending those. And I'm very grateful to them for doing that. And I think it was interesting at this last one that even folks who've been served on that board for a long time, there were things that they were like, oh, that's why we do that, or, oh, I didn't realize, this kind of a thing. So it made me feel better personally, but really appreciative of those. And I know that's work for their staff to put those on, but I look forward to those continuing, I think throughout the year, I
Yes.
think is what they're gonna do, so.
They really are helpful.
Yeah, very. So, so that, I believe that was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Director Rizvi?
I am good, thank you.
Okay. Director Denstedt?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to chime in again on what Laura was mentioning, we had a workshop, so we've had a lot of turnover at LEJWA's board and some new members there. So we spent 2 hours having a workshop to talk about everything that LEJWA does and the TMDL task force and what the importance of that is for everything that they do and how we get funding and all the processes that we do to engage the community in all of the water quality issues with Lake Elsinore and Canyon Lake. So, so that was a good refresher, even though I've been sitting on that board for, gosh, maybe a decade now. So, but it was really good, and we've got Kevin Jeffries was now replaced with Karen Spiegel because of the shift in the districts now, and of course the replacement for Phil Williams coming off of that board since his passing. And then Canyon Lake has a tendency to rotate their council members quite frequently through there. So it's an education for them to understand what it is that really is funding and protecting over there for the water quality issues. So just wanted to comment on that.
And LEJWA is?
LEJWA is the Lake Elsinore San Jacinto Water Authority. So that's, yes, and that's exactly what they're tasked with, protecting those two bodies of water over there and all of the runoff and all of the load that comes off of that. For the TMDL task force is the total dissolved solids, right? That goes into that, and all of the processes and all the things that come and run off to compromise the water quality that's going into those two water bodies, because they're both maintained water bodies, and Canyon Lake has certainly got its challenges, but it's a drinking reservoir for what our agency uses for Elsinore. So there's a lot of stuff going on over there, but yep. So just wanted to keep you up on that, and we won't be having our annual, because I think they do it every 2 years to talk about the importance of that, and we bring the community in and all of the stakeholders and everything and the participant parties and things, but I don't think we're holding that this year. I think it's the following year.
Okay.
Okay? So I'll keep you posted if that changes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just in the way of comments and a lead into a request, it's not for an agenda item, but I have family up at Big Bear, and they have over 100 inches of snow before this last night's storm, which is, I mean, it is really amazing. The roads up are still all closed except to residents, and they were letting people down the back way through Lucerne Valley only. So there's a heck of a lot of local snow up there. I have not seen a report on lake level. They had some rain, but most of it's still frozen. So it's not contributed to a rise in lake level, but they may spill at Big Bear this season, which would be nice. That's pretty rare. And my request is, after this storm goes through, it looks like we're going to get a break in storms for a while. Could the board get just a quick email listing reservoir levels in some of the key reservoirs? Yeah. I mean, the big six were still below average. I suspect they may have gotten above average by now for this time of year. But I think it's useful for us as we are talking about solved water crisis and why are we still concerned even though it's raining a lot, to be able to point out those things. Yes, we've had a lot of rain, but the reservoirs were so low that they're not where we want them to be yet.
Yeah, we'll produce that. I mean, that number changes every day.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's, you see it a week ago and you're like, oh yeah, we're back to level, but I don't know what's happened in the last week. I haven't
Right.
even looked.
I suspect it
I just
looks
know it's
better
getting
this
better.
week.
It
Yeah.
continues to
That's
get
a
better.
good thing.
Nothing
Yeah.
got worse.
Yeah, it's got to be better this week, but
Yeah.
it's not as high as people expect that it's going to be. You know, if they don't understand how the system works and how low the reservoirs were. So I think it'll be, just, if we can be kept apprised of, recent numbers
Yeah.
so that we speak correct numbers.
Yeah, we'll get that out to you, and then, our practice has been every other board meeting to do a water supply update, so we'll have a bigger water supply update to the board at the next board meeting, but
Right.
happy to send out that data again.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, requests for future agenda items. Director Denstead? Director Isby? Director Roten? Director Torres? I have nothing else either. We do have information items. Anybody have questions on those? If not, it appears we have a closed session. Mr. Ballinger.
Yes, we will be going into closed session for the one item of significant exposure to litigation. I do not anticipate a report out, but we will be, at least in terms of any reportable action, but we will be reconvening to report out.
Okay. Mr. President, I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If it would be the pleasure of the board, on our adjournment today, if we could adjourn in honor of Ted Hoffman, who has passed away from Norco. He was a
Yes.
member of OWOW and a part of WRCOG's representation on OWOW, and was a huge supporter for our agency, for water policy, for regional water policy, and was a great advocate for us. So I just want to make sure that we recognize and
No, I-
honor his service.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. And I think we'll do it now because more people are here than are likely to be here. No, not adjourn, but talk about Mr. Hoffman. He is an amazing guy. He is a veteran, was a veteran, served on the Norco Council for quite some time, came from a very large family, and his wife is an invalid. He was her primary caretaker. He always wore a great big cowboy hat. And it wasn't for show. I mean, that was just him. Sort of a true Norconian. He's a loss to certainly the city of Norco and his friends and family, but as you said, Director Dent said, as to the region. And to water in particular, even though that was not his primary focus.
Yes.
So-
And I'd also like to call attention to, Mr. President, if I could, Mr. Hoffman was a retired deputy sheriff.
Yes.
And served honorably in that capacity for many, many years to be a first responder and protector of our communities. So he was a true servant and a true community member who cared for all of us.
So when we adjourn, it will be in honor and memory of Ted Hoffman. And with that, we will head off to closed session and we will return.
Can we start closed session in 5 minutes? Give us a little break to get ready for that. So should we say 10:40?
That works for me.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Mike Mauser or Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I can't hear you for some reason. Hold on. Figured it out. All right, try now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Are we going to set it up so that the closed session room is Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think, yeah. We should be setting it up so that the closed session room and Wendy are the only Zoom participants.
Fantastic. It just set me up as the host. So Wendy, can you hear?
Yes.
All
Yeah,
right,
and I think
fantastic.
if I see is that your laptop you have with you, Tim? Do you want to leave that in, or should we just go ahead and move everything?
Leave it in just in case.
Okay.
Now, it says it's recording. I heard it come on and say it's recording. Can somebody stop that, please? We don't
Yeah,
wanna record
so,
this. Let's see here, Chris.
let's see. Tim, that room should be the host. You want to
Okay.
make the,
Steve's here.
I'm here. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm for everything on the other side.
And,
Does any cleaning operations, you gotta have a stand when you're reading in church.
Yeah.
In case you actually have a stand. Or you're towing the trailer behind you with.
Okay, the board has returned from closed session. Legal counsel, do we have any reportable action?
No, we do not.
Case, we will adjourn the meeting in memory and honor of Norco City Council member, going blank, Ted Hoffman. There we go. And we are adjourned. Thank you.